All right, now this. It's been a little over a month since a 6-week abortion ban went into effect in Florida. Once a swing state, in recent elections, of course, has voted Republican. But nearly 2 years after the Supreme Court's Dobbs decision that overturned Roe versus Wade, some Democrats there are more hopeful that this can change their electoral fortunes. As the New York Times reports, Democrats plan to try to regain a foothold in Florida by championing reproductive freedom with a proposed state constitutional amendment on the ballot this year that would establish a right to abortion before viability, which is known as Amendment 4. One of the women making that case is former Congresswoman Debbie Mucarsel-Powell. She is the Democratic candidate in Florida, hoping to unseat Republican Senator Rick Scott, and she joins me now. Congresswoman, it's wonderful to have you on the show this morning. Thanks for being here.
Good morning, Casey. Thank you for having me on.
Congresswoman, there's been a lot of speculation and focus on this ballot initiative, especially as it comes as women in Florida are grappling with this new reality that abortion is banned after 6 weeks. Are you seeing evidence that this is making it harder for Republicans in your state to hang on? Is there more money coming in for you on this? How does it feel as you are out there campaigning every day?
Casey, I have been traveling the state now for a few months, and I can tell you that this is a top issue for Republicans, Democrats, independents. It's an issue that really unifies Floridians. Over 60% of Floridians reject such an extreme ban on abortion, a 6-week ban, when most women don't know that they're pregnant. Rick Scott has doubled down, saying that he would vote against this abortion amendment. He has said that he would support any anti-abortion bill that comes in front of him. And you know, just an example, I was having a conversation with a 72-year-old man, and I asked him what his top issue was, and he said abortion. I was surprised to hear that, but he said that he had lost his aunt before Roe v. Wade had been enacted, and it had completely destroyed his family. He now has 2 daughters, and he said, you know, for me, we need to make sure that we protect our daughters and women's freedoms here in the state of Florida. It's extremely dangerous, as you know. I come from Latin America, Casey, and we have legalized access to abortion in Colombia, in Venezuela, not Venezuela, sorry, in Colombia, in Argentina, and in Mexico. And because it's directly linked to high rates of violence against women. I'm a mom, I have 2 daughters. I'm extremely concerned about this ban, and it won't mean anything if Florida passes this abortion amendment and then Rick Scott gets back to the Senate and then pushes for a national abortion ban. So this race has become much more critical than ever.
Congresswoman, I want to show everyone what Senator Scott has had to say about IVF and then also about the Dobbs decision, because they are, of course, linked together. IVF coming into jeopardy in Alabama and potentially elsewhere because of the ramifications of the fall of Dobbs. Let's watch and then I'll ask you about it.
I support IVF. I've got family members going through IVF. It's a way to build a family.
So would you support legislation then that would federally protect IVF?
Well, I mean, I'll look at anything like that.
Do you think the Dobbs decision was correct?
Well, yeah.
That was the result of it, right?
These decisions should go back to the state. That was a good decision.
So he's saying that the Dobbs decision was a good one, but also that he might consider federal legislation to protect IVF. Do you believe he would do that?
Absolutely not. And I think that the majority of Floridians know who Rick Scott is, and they don't trust him. You cannot trust him. This is someone who, when he was CEO of a healthcare company, committed the largest Medicare fraud in the history of this country. They had to pay out almost $1.7 billion back on that fraud. And he's now using that money to lie to Floridians. He has bought a 7-figure ad to say that he supports this, but he stands next to extremists who have signed on to the life of conception bill. He actually voted just a couple of days ago against protecting access to contraception. He has become a poster child of extremism in the Senate, and that is why this race really is extremely critical. Not only does he want to go back to the Senate, Casey, but he now wants to become Senate Majority Leader, and he will absolutely enact an agenda that will attack a woman's right not only to choose, but also to have access to contraception.
Congresswoman, we've been talking today about some new polling that's out this morning in swing states, especially in the state of Virginia, where it is showing that that state, which has voted blue recently by 10 points in the last election, now tied between President Trump, former President Trump and President Biden. There have, of course, been many national polls that show, if anything, Donald Trump seems to have an edge in this race. What is President Biden doing wrong that this is the case?
Well, look, I've been talking about the disinformation that we've been seeing now for over 2 years. People are relying on receiving their news on their phones, and we know that social media is filled with conspiracy theories, and we continue to see that. And I also think that it's extremely important for the president to travel all over the country to make sure people know all the policies, not only that he has enacted, but policies that he wants to continue to work on if he gets reelected. We have an affordability crisis in Florida, Casey, and I can tell you that a lot of the issues that we're facing in Florida are because of the failed policies that have been enacted in the state by the legislature. We have the highest property insurance rates that we have seen in the country. And so there are things that we can do at the federal level to make sure that we find relief to the high cost of living for Floridians and for people all over the country. And I think that it's important for us to make sure that we continue to connect not only with voters in these swing states, but voters, young voters all over the country that right now feel disengaged.
Congresswoman, do you think Democrats should go out of their way to label Donald Trump a convicted felon and campaign more aggressively on that?
Well, I don't know if it's going out of our way, Casey. Let's be honest here. It's the reality that the former president is now facing. This was a trial, a fair trial. He had every opportunity to defend himself, and 12 jurors, independent jurors. This has nothing to do with party. This has nothing to do with the White House or the Department of Justice. This was an independent trial brought by the state of New York, and 12 independent jurors found the former president guilty on all counts. It was a unanimous decision, and it's a fact. And I think that it's important for Americans to realize what happened in New York and the dangers that we're facing if the former president has a chance to get back to the White House. I was in Congress when he was in the White House, and we saw the attacks not only against women, against families, but we also saw his attacks and demonizing immigrants. We have to make sure that people understand the rise in anti-Semitism right now. It won't stop there. There will be targeted attacks against all groups that don't belong in his MAGA cult.
All right, former Congresswoman Debbie Mucarsel-Powell. Congresswoman, thank you very much for your time this morning. I appreciate it.
Thank you.